All right. Hopefully you're seeing me, and hopefully you're hearing me. I'll find out momentarily, I'm sure. It's a pissed off Orama. Oh dear. Oh dear, should I be worried? What am I eating? Strawberries. Ms. Wicked Wolf, this is not a choker. This is a collar. There is a difference. I own both, but like that acorn. It's a nice acorn. Thank you. I like it too. Hello all. I'm not gonna catch everybody's name and say hello to everybody. I want to, but I'm gonna miss some and feel bad that I missed somebody. I want the collar. Where did you get it? Well, it's two different things. The collar itself, honestly, might just be from Amazon. I've had it for a while. This is separate. Like this I could take off the collar easily enough. So this was gifted to me as a separate thing. Looking pretty. Thank you, Adrian. Hope everybody is doing well and enjoying Pride. Oh, adrenaline. Oh, that pun is terrible. Bless you. I don't want June to end. I'll tell you what. Not that I'm saying it makes me not want to be in Pride, but, you know, I won't miss the far right hammering at us even harder than they normally do, just trying to counteract the joy that we have in our own lives. Ugh. I could never wear a collar like that. It's not for everybody. How's life? Life is okay. Life is right now incredibly work-centric. Because next week I've got family vacation that I'm taking, and I won't, you know, I have to be ahead of my workload because I won't be working on stuff for 5 days. So it's yeah, life is very heads down in work most of the time. And generally, if I'm not working, I'm doing something else that I need to be doing, like packing envelopes for stuff that I had hoped to get mailed out by now, but I'm still working on, or yard work because I've got, oh God, I've got to trim the forsythia bush. Yeah, there is a lot of stuff. I'm on family vacation next week too. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will enjoy it. Not did enjoy. I can think. I went to our local Pride Fest a few years ago. Had people lining up outside the barricades to keep traffic out of the parking lot to shout at people attending. Ugh. That generally doesn't happen around here. At least I've never encountered it. I feel like one or two people might have had like signs, but I don't ever recall anybody shouting at us. I do remember, I think it was 2019. I remember the governor being at Pride. I don't like this governor very much, but I remember him being at Pride and somebody going up and shaking his hand and with a big smile on their face saying to him, "Go fuck yourself." And that made me laugh. Oh, Captain, Omni, thank you so much for the super chat. Well, I have Pride news. I'll be proposing to my girlfriend at the end of Pride. Last day, yes, I believe in going out with a bang. Well, best of luck. I should remind people that while I do try and keep up with the chat, the only thing that will guarantee that I see your comment is by either making use of the super chats, which also gets you a heart from me, but also if you are in the Discord for the Council of Geeks Patreon, then there is a channel devoted for that where you can drop a question as well. Those are the two ways. I live in a very red county of Maryland. Lots of Trump and F. Biden signs around the county. Oh, I'm not going to say that I don't see those signs sometimes, but there's a very Vermont mentality of I won't bug you if you don't bug me. Like, as far as getting up in people's faces go, it's just not, it's not in the mentality of most areas around here. I'm not going to say none, but not most. So, like, you'll get, like, most protests are sign holding. Not an awful lot of shouting. A lot of sign holding. Pride Parade here in Vancouver is on the last day of July. Usually it's August. Not sure why it's late here. Events all summer through in the lead up. Oh, interesting. If Neil Patrick Harris plays another in-between doctor, do we get to call him Dr. Hauser? No. And he better not. I can't imagine they're going to keep doing that. Like, that is a well that I think they need to stop trying to pull anything useful from. My water is now taking effect. Oh, good, homebody. I'm glad to hear it. Oh, hey there, Jolie. The toy maker, who's that? Oh, someone very fun, I hope. I think NPH has pretty much been confirmed as the toy maker. I mean, like, I hear terms like basically confirmed, pretty much confirmed. That's not confirmed. Do I agree that that's most likely who it is? Yes. Yes, I do agree. But, you know, to me, pretty much confirmed is still unconfirmed. Supremo Mega, thank you very much for the super chat. Hello, how are you? Question. Are there ways to kill off queer characters without falling prey to barrier gaze trope? Because ideally, all bets should be off. Honestly, the best way to counteract it is threefold. Now, you don't have to do all of these things, but these are your options. One, this is honestly kind of the big one for me. This is the one that I kind of really put my foot down on. They really shouldn't be the only gay or queer character in a story. When the gay character or queer character that you kill is the only representation for queer people, that's really hard to get away with at this point for someone like me. But one of the few ways you can get around that is if you're telling a story where basically everybody dies. So, like, if you're doing And Then There Were None or The Thing or something, like, where it's clear that it's super indiscriminate to the point that virtually nobody's left alive. That might have you get away with killing the only gay character, but if you're not doing that, not having them be the only queer character, that's one thing. And then the other thing is making sure that being queer is not their most prominent characteristic, because that's how you end up with stuff like Resolution with Chibnall, where you have a character basically show up, he confirms he has a boyfriend and then is immediately killed. So his character and his personality, as was communicated to the audience, was gay. That's literally the only thing we knew about him. That's kind of the thing. It's not that you can't kill queer people, but, like, it carries baggage. Know how to handle it. Didn't the toy maker get referenced in Can You Hear Me? He did. He did. I actually mentioned that in my short. Do you all think that the toy maker could be why 10 is there? I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like, he's got no connections to 10 as it stands. But yeah, suppose. I don't need to know the ages of movies, Ms. Wicked Wolf. I do not need to feel any older than I currently do. Thank you kindly. I wouldn't be that surprised if NPH just came to set looking like Geppetto and RTD told him he needed to take a selfie for the announcement. He's actually voicing Beep the Meep. Ugh, for goodness sake, that whole thing. I'm currently wearing midnight black acrylic nails, so sorry for any typing errors. Best of luck. I don't do acrylic nails. Like, the sensation of them really does bother me. What are your thoughts on Xena Warrior Princess? I have seen very little of it, so I have very few. Probably Yanto from Torchwood is one of the lesser problematic ways to kill a gay character off. I mean, it helps that by the time Yanto dies, like, 2 other members of the Torchwood team who had already been killed at that point, and I think they were both bi. So Yanto definitely isn't the first character killed. Might not even be the first queer character killed. Almost everybody on that show is queer. So, like, that Torchwood had a number of things going for it. Would you rather be a Cyberman or a Borg? I'm going to go with Borg. I think both would suck. But I suspect the assimilation into the Borg would be a lot less painful than the cyber conversion. So, like, I figure each life would be equivalently crap, but the difference being how bad is it getting there. Am I going to see Lightyear? I mean, eventually, maybe, probably. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care. That's all it boils down to at this point. I'm old enough to remember the original Power Rangers, given that I'm actually only a year and about a week younger than Council of Geeks. You'll be 40 soon. Lucy Lawless continues to be hot. That I will agree with. That is an opinion I will absolutely agree with. I can't stay long. I have rehearsal in 45 minutes. Just wanted to say happy Pride. Thank you, Nora. I appreciate that. Ever see the Buffy movie? I've been saving it for the end of my Buffy bridge. I'm halfway through Angel season 5, and I'm dreading my rewatch. I have seen the Buffy movie. It's not very good. Like, if you're a fan of the TV show, it's kind of fascinating to see, like, just the concept, the core concept and the idea done badly. It's kind of just, I don't know, academically interesting, for lack of a better way to put it. Do I support a football or soccer team? And true. And true. I don't care about sports, like any sport, at all. Not a single one. I find sports really boring. It's not about the specifics of any given game. I find the very nature of sports to be really boring. And some of them are boring in very specific ways, but broadly, I find all sports boring. The only exception I will make is that I have kind of gotten into the marble racing on Yella's Marble Run. That's about it, though. My first female crush was Winnie from Wonder Years. Didn't realize at the time it was a crush, though. Yeah, that can happen. Have you watched Skins UK? Nope. Does not seem like my jam at all. I have no interest. What classic villain do you want in the new Doctor Who series? Omega! Still, always. That will be the answer for a long time. How would you rank the 3 big franchise roles Indira Varma has played? Susie in Torchwood, Illyria Sand in Game of Thrones, Tala in Obi-Wan. I don't remember Susie from Torchwood. And the sands were all wasted, so by default, I'll say Ala. I'm sorry, Tala. Blech. Brain fart. What about Yu-Gi-Oh? Does that count as a sport? I mean, if you wanted to, you can. Even if you count that I still don't like sports. Stupid question, but have you been enjoying Stranger Things if you watch it? I have shot my review of Stranger Things 4. I need to edit it and upload it. But mixed is how I am on this season. Let's go with that. Do you remember Queer as Folk? I remember that it exists. I've never watched it. Either version. I heard a complaint that queer characters always play oppressed people. Would not addressing homophobia in queer stories be unrealistic? Doing the community an injustice? Well, it depends on where the story's set and the story being told. So, like, your belief that it would be, or at least your proposed issue, that it would be unrealistic to not address, that presumes that the story is set in the now and takes place within a location where homophobia is a prominent issue. But, you know, you're talking to a sci-fi fantasy fan who, you know, my first thought is if you have a story set anywhere other than now or in the past of the world we live in, why is there homophobia? I'm not saying there can't be, but my first question is why? Because there doesn't have to be. And I don't think it's a disservice to tell stories without it if it makes sense to not include it. But like, if you're gonna tell a story in a puritanical colony in the Americas in 16 something or other, yeah, there's gonna be homophobia. Like, to not depict it would be incredibly strange. You'd need a really specific reason to not do it. But, like, I don't think it is by any means required in order to tell a gay story. It just depends on where you set it and what story you're trying to do. Supremo Mega, member for 2 months. Thank you so much. Thoughts on Jeff Johns as a writer, pros and cons? I have not read a ton of his stuff. I know a fair amount of the kinds of things he's done. I admire his ambition. I admire his sweeping scope and his ability to wrangle the emotional core of most of his stories. That having been said, he can eat crap and choke for his insistence on obliterating nearly all legacy characters and bringing back retired or dead ones in order to restore a status quo that he grew up on that wasn't the current one that the readership was enjoying at the time. That's selfish and cruel. Let's see. John Vinyls, thank you very much. My favorite thing about Illyria Sand in Game of Thrones is that in the book, she just wants the violence to stop and the revenge cycle to end. Well, that's interesting. There was nothing in that entire subplot in the movies that had any point, really, other than to, like, eventually kill off one of Cersei's kids. It's like the only thing with lasting impact. The entire... Is it Dorne? I can't even remember the name of the place. Whatever the place is, like, that entire subplot was useless. She was the member of the Torchwood team who blew her brains out in episode 1. Then got brought back to life. Oh, okay. All right. I do remember her now. I might go with that then, now that I remember. What are my thoughts on biopics? I usually find them boring, and a lot of them lean on the, well, this is what really happened excuse for a really terrible structure. Most biopics are really badly structured as stories, and they lean on the idea that they're telling real life as a reason to not have to structure a story properly. Littlefinger on Game of Thrones was in Queer as Folk, the British one. He was the main one, I think. Yeah, I know that because of a joke that Yossi Croshaw made when he did a Zero Punctuation review on Quantum Break. Because he mentions how the character had a tendency to, like, in the course of talking, like, sort of snake his tongue out a bit. And I remember in the review, he said, he really is the actor for whom snake-like was the term snake-like was created. He certainly uses his tongue like a snake. It should have its own IMDb page. Maybe his tongue specifically unsettles me, because I remember all the shit it got up to in Queer as Folk, and I chose those words very carefully. It's telling that so much fantasy and sci-fi cannot imagine a word without homophobia and sexism. Yeah, I agree, Adrenaline. Yeah. I very sincerely don't like the fact that a lot of fantasy and sci-fi authors assume a porting over of the exact same kinds of prejudices and oppression from the real world and historically would happen in any world. I'm like, why? Why do you assume that? So, yeah, it's frustrating. Do you think the no one is allowed to be happy problem is not just limited to comics, but also other long-term franchises? Yeah, I mean, it's most prominent in comics because comics, I think, as a medium, especially superhero comics, like the entire thing is all long-running stories. So, but if you were to narrow it down to other things that run for really long times, whether it be, you know, soap operas or even something like James Bond, like James Bond can't ever be happy. James Bond was ever in a happy relationship, how, like, he wouldn't be recognizable as James Bond. So, like, it's not a it is a long-term storytelling problem, but since comics are intended to go on indefinitely, and because they are cheaper to produce and don't require you to maintain actors and things like that, they have a much greater ability to go on indefinitely. It becomes more prominent in comics than in a lot of other media. But yeah, no, it can affect other things. Is there any chance of you seeing the Thunderbolts series when it comes out? Probably. I'm still waiting to find out more about it, but yeah, probably. Rocketman is a biopic, and Rocketman also doesn't fall into the same structures. I didn't say I didn't like any biopics. I just said I don't like most biopics. If you could change one thing about Peter Capaldi's interpretation of the Doctor, what would it be? Nothing. I am not so full of myself as to think that I could improve what he brought. What did I think of Moon Knight? The last episode was disappointing and frustrating. It felt really, really, really rushed. It felt like it needed at least one more episode, if not two. Thoughts on documentaries? I find BBC Earth has some of the best. I do like Planet Earth. Documentaries, I need to be in the right mood for a documentary. But they can be good. Zero Punctuation really does a number on us. I also knew about Littlefinger because of that joke. Oh, there you go. Oh, hey, Natalia. Oh, thank you. you. That's very sweet. Long time listener, first time caller. Well, welcome. Welcome to the party. I've got some super chats to get to. Supreme Omega, how do you feel? Do you feel that coming out stories can be overdone? Because aren't there other issues queer people face that relate to their sexuality and gender identity? I mean, there are. Like, part of my boredom with coming out stories is that by their nature, they center the story on the character's queerness. So the story is about them being queer. I'm not saying there's no value in those stories. So, like, those stories still should be told. I'm not saying those stories shouldn't keep being told. But I'm saying my interest, I am way more interested in a character who is queer and also this is happening to them, as opposed to this is a story about their queerness. I get hooked in on silliness, on monsters and spaceships and fairies and, you know, the wood kind, the woodland kind. So I would rather have a story about that with queer characters in it than having a story about queerness. Are they overdone? I don't know. It's hard for me to say because, like I said, that genre isn't really something I'm watching anyway. So I'm not really sure I'm in a position to say whether it's overdone or not. I would kind of like to see mainstream depictions start to move away from that. Like, just take it as a given. Yeah, they came out at some point, and they clearly have some sort of support structure. We don't need to talk about that. We can pick it up from context. Let's move forward. How do you feel about the fact the Who discourse is taken over by RTD leaks when 13's era is not over yet? I bet it could leak. I get it could leak. Oh, sorry. I get it could be leak management, but feels borderline disrespectful. Like, things are just really tough right now, especially so. A lot of the filming for something like Doctor Who happens in public spaces. It's a lot easier for, Hollywood or even Marvel with the facilities that it's built around Atlanta. They have these massive closed off areas that people just can't get close enough to. And so they can keep a clamp on things a lot easier. And of course, anything that's shot on a green screen stage, nobody's in there who isn't supposed to be. For Doctor Who, or most UK stuff, to be honest, they've got locations where people are going to see them. And the leaks and the drops, yeah, to a certain extent, let me put it this way. I don't think RTD is trying to step on Whittaker's exit. It is kind of what's happening, though. And that is unfortunate, but at the same time, sometimes this is what you have to do to get ahead of the leaks, because the leaks in something like Doctor Who are pretty bad, especially when it comes to filming. Like, they're a little bit better on scripts and overall ideas, but when it comes to filming, yeah, that stuff gets spotted. And so you're better off just getting ahead of it, because it's going to be in the conversation either way. It's just a question of whether or not you're in control of it at all. John Vinyls, thank you again. At Ms. Wicked Wolf, it's really unfair how Willie Scott has every reason to be upset and scared, but the movie treats her obvious undiagnosed general anxiety disorder as a joke and a punchline. So we're talking Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I really don't like that movie. I would rather watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. then watch Temple of Doom. I really don't like Temple of Doom at all. The soundtrack's good. There's a couple of decent set pieces. I really don't like that movie. Willie's one of many reasons. Initially, I didn't like her because she was annoying. And now as an adult, I'm like, why is this funny? Like the film was very cruel, which is something that both Lucas and Spielberg sort of acknowledged looking back on it, because I think Lucas was in the middle of his divorce when they were working on it. Like, just the tone of it it's just kind of a cruel movie. What are my thoughts on the Sly Cooper games? Never played them. No idea. Preemptive, safe, and happy travels. Thank you, Homebody. I appreciate that. Torchlight, remember, villains think they're the hero. Most of them do. I do think there is fun to be had in a villain who knows they're the villain. The trick is just to not use that as a way to skimp out on characterization. So, like, if you want a really good example, you can go to Shakespeare. You can look at characters like Aaron the Moor from Titus Andronicus, or Richard III from Richard III. These are characters who are well aware that they are the villains of with everything going on. But they're really great and compelling characters because their understanding of that about themselves isn't an excuse to not fully flesh them out. That's part of their characterization. It says a lot about them that they would rather lean into what they know is villainy with no rationalization, no, it's okay because, just like, yeah, I'm okay being the villain in this story. And what that says about them as people. You have to construct that very carefully, but it can absolutely work. I missed a chat. Oh, what did I miss? Herbie Varsawas. Thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Thoughts on superheroes becoming parents? Some people say it's never done right. I disagree, and I'm still wanting for Spider-Dad. I absolutely disagree that it's never done right. The problem is, because there is rather frequent turnover for writing staff and even editorial staff, the problem is that it almost never keeps, because a later writer will come around and decide they don't want to write a kid and retcon it, or, you know, erase it or kill off people or whatever. Like, I think there are good stories out of heroes becoming parents. I think sometimes those stories even get told, but they almost never stay or never stick. And, like, I do understand it from the sense of these characters are kind of meant to never age and just go on forever. But at the same time, like, you're cutting off a lot of storytelling potential out of the constant status quo resets. Would I go so far as to say I hate Temple of Doom? No, but I don't like it. Do you have any interest in the Joker sequel or nah? Nah. Like, I'll probably see it out of morbid curiosity, but I didn't think the first one was very good. And that's one of those movies that, like, people tore into me for not praising that movie, which is just irritating. Like, I don't care if you think I'm an idiot because I didn't like it. It's just annoying to have to clear out my comments because I'm determined to keep it civil as best as I can. Speaking of Temple of Doom, it's a real joy seeing Ke Huy Quan getting great reviews for his performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I still want to see that. Sean tweeted today he's working on part 4 of BBC Video, hopefully to release tomorrow. I knew he would. Like, I knew he was going to do a follow-up, which will probably render my own breakdown to the BBC response moot and redundant, because he'll probably do it better and more thoroughly, but, you know. I did it first. Yay. I don't know. Would you include Maleficent in the category, or is she not fleshed out enough? Well, I mean, like, she's a literal cartoon villain. She is appropriately fleshed out for the story she's in. Thoughts on Superman as a dad? I thought that was a great idea. Because for somebody as deeply principled as him, you know, being the paragon and trying to balance what he's trying to do to help humanity while being a good father, I thought that was a great idea. I haven't read a lot of the stuff, but I thought that was a great idea. I just realized coming out stories are so plentiful because it's the aspect of queerness cishet people are mostly exposed to. Yeah, that's true, Sam. And like part of that is it treats queerness itself as unusual. Because if you just had them as queer and didn't do a coming out story and they're just there, it treats queerness as normal. And apparently that is far more radical. For some goddamn reason. Are you talking about UK queer as folk, original US queer as folk, or new queer as folk? I forget they're doing a new one. Oh, good grief. My favorite video game? I mean, nostalgically, it's Final Fantasy VI. I don't know if it would actually remain that if I went back and replayed it, but nostalgically, yeah. Honestly, I want to see it after I found out it was Lady Gaga musical and it pissed off most of its fans. I mean, like that. Look, we'll see. I thought the original had its head really far up its own ass. And I don't have a lot of respect for Todd Phillips as a director. But you know, we'll see. We'll see. How does You're Being Served still show? Oh, goodness. I remember watching that reruns of that when I was a kid. John Vinyls, thank you very much. Temple of Doom would have worked better if the villain was a colonial British officer misusing Hindu magic for his own powers. It would have helped, but like, let's be honest. All of the Indiana Jones stories carry, even the good ones, carry an overtone of colonialism with them because it's kind of inherent to the treasure hunting genre. Because you got a white guy going into places that are not his country to remove artifacts from the land in which they belong. That's what the genre is. So, like, there's inherent problems. I still like treasure hunting stories, but, like, that's a problem inherently. Have I played any of the Persona games? I have Persona 5 on my PS3. I think I booted it up once. I didn't really get very far. Kei Hui Kwan also played Data in the Goonies. Yeah, I figured that was him. I would suggest watching Superman and Lois, but I don't. But I know you don't like family dramas, so don't. I don't have the time to watch that one. I super don't. Supreme Omega, thank you very much for the super chat. How come Bully and Mean Girl getting a redemption arc is prevalent and popular? Just look at Cordelia and Buffy, Flash Thompson, and the Spidey comics. I think there's a couple reasons. The first is I think a lot of writers enjoy the challenge of trying to redeem a character. I think redemption stories by their nature have an appeal. And beyond that, if the characters stick around long enough, you kind of have to start to lend depth to them if they're going to remain interesting at all. And the more depth you lend to a Bully or Mean Girl character, the more shades you're going to bring, the more aspects, and the less shallow they become. And then that's sort of just a gradual drift towards them becoming better people. What did Todd Phillips do? He didn't do anything. I just don't think he's a particularly good director. And again, he had his head really far up his own ass. I remember him talking about Joker, about how it wasn't a comic book movie, it was a real movie. And like, just piss off, dude. If you think you're too good for the source material you're working with, go somewhere else. I have no time for people who show contempt for source material or contempt for adjacent genres in which they are working. I'm not saying he has to. I'm not saying he's not allowed to think that. He can think whatever he wants, but that's a dickhead thing to say out loud. Apropos of absolutely nothing, finally found a Lord of the Rings channel host with a sense of humor who agreed that yes, Phaser 1 would indeed destroy the ring. Oh, they had to be out there somewhere. I imagine it must be hard for Indigenous folks to watch treasure hunting stories. I would imagine there's a lot of stuff that is probably hard for, or at least frustrating for Indigenous folk. But I'm also, it's not my place to speak for them. So, speak any Spanish? No. I took Spanish for 2 years? 2 or 3? I think 2. 2 years. I took 2 years of Spanish in high school. I don't remember a thing. I remember nothing. The columnist and newspaper, it was, so that's in relation to something else. On Australia, gossip columnists contacted Rebel to let her know they were writing a story about her new relationship with a woman. She announced the relationship on Insta before it got published. Oh, the thing with Rebel Wilson. Yeah. The columnist in the newspaper it was linked to then got into a huff that they couldn't leak the news, considering the columnist was gay himself. That was surprising. I don't find, Amos, I actually don't find that surprising at all. If you know who Perez Hilton is, then you should know how very easy it is for people to prioritize their career over people that they should, in theory, be able to empathize with. But, like, I don't know who this person is, and I don't know if specifically what I'm about to say applies to this person, so understand that. But if you're a bottom-feeding scumbag reporter, then it doesn't really matter if you're gay or not. Oh, thank you, Caroline. John Vinyls, you needed a heart for that last super chat. Purple Raider, you get a heart as well. No comment or statement. Just wanted to let you know you're great and you are loved. Thank you. I appreciate that. My secret goal is to get Vera to use more Yiddish expressions. Oy, gewalt. Thank you for clipping that, Carolyn. Much appreciated. Let me just stretch real quick. Discord, yes, Carolyn. Let me just take care of John's newest super chat. Thank you, John. Shakespeare villains. Could you do reimagining of Merchants of Venice or The Tempest, where Portia is an antagonist figure, where Prospero is the villain? I don't know Merchant of Venice well enough. You could make Prospero the villain very easily. You do a little tweaking. You make Caliban. You tweak Caliban so he is less of a villainous figure in terms of his backstory. And you make Prospero more of just an oppressive, controlling dick who's mad at having lost power. Yeah, Prospero can be the villain real easy in The Tempest. Real easy. I'm performing at my first Pride this Saturday. Any tips on how to handle it? Focus on what it is you're doing, and people will love you for it. You'll be fine. All right. I need to hop on over to the Discord. See what we've got here. We've got a few. Okay. People have been making a lot more use of this lately. Okay. The Boiling Isles are a made-up fantasy setting, so this is from Owl House. So Dana Terrace can just make it so there's no bigotry against queer people here. But what about when Amity and Luce visit the real world? If you were writing Owl House, would you have the characters encounter homophobia on Earth, or would you just ignore it? The other week I posted this question on the Owl House subreddit, and several people told me having them encounter bigotry on Earth would undermine the show's intent to make queer kids feel included and normal, even if it would be realistic. I'm kind of inclined to agree. I would say that whether or not it would feel unrealistic to not address it would have to do with what it was that they did while on Earth. So, like, if they mainly are just encountering, say, Luce's mother, then I don't think there's a need to make a big problem out of that. But also keep in mind, I haven't seen the end of season 2 yet because it's not on Disney Plus. So if there's something that's happened that I don't know about, don't tell me, please. But yeah, I'm overall inclined to agree with that assessment that a big part of the point of the show is to normalize all these things. And so even if you could make an argument for realism to that it's a reason to reintroduce homophobia under certain circumstances. Here's the thing. Realism is not the end-all be-all, nor should it ever be. Know what story you want to tell and tell it. You are not obligated to be quote-unquote realistic. If it comes down to a conflict between is this realistic and is this the story I want to tell, as long as the way in which you are bending or playing with realistic aspects isn't in direct contradiction to what your own story has been doing, throw realism out the window. If it's gonna completely bum out the entire thing, to hell with it. And anyone who might try and argue, well, kids should understand the realistic, oppression or disrespect that they'd receive being queer, I'm like, they already know. They need to see support right now. They don't need to see that depicted in their entertainment because they see it in reality. Believe me. Are Stranger Things episodes too long? Yeah, actually. They are. I don't like it. And the same thing happened to HBO with the tail end of Game of Thrones. I don't think that it's a net gain for showrunners to be told, make the episodes however long you need them to be. Because I think there is a lot of good that happens from the streamlining of making something fit a set amount of time, as opposed to just tacking on 15 minutes because you can. Maybe the story would be better if you drop those 15 minutes or reallocate them across multiple episodes as a running B plot or something else. Even as a creative myself, I don't think working with no restrictions is good for creativity. I think creativity thrives within certain kinds of constraints. And I think runtimes on episodes is usually better for these things than to just take it off and go, make the episode however long you want, which is what season 4 has been like, and I don't care for it. Do you think it's particularly realistic that someone like Steve Harrington would just have no bigotry against lesbians whatsoever? I wasn't alive in the 80s, and I never lived in a small town in America, so I don't know. Is it realistic? I don't know. I also don't care, because it's awesome. And it's one of the best scenes from season 3, her coming out to him and him just kind of taking this pause and pivoting and shifting from thinking he had a romantic interest to being just like her friend. It's too good to be bogged down in realism. Like, that's the thing. I don't care if that's unrealistic. Don't take that moment away. It's great. Besides the fact that since then, it's not like it's acted like nothing has any sense of homophobia about it. She's obviously nervous about letting a girl she has a crush on know. They're nervous about other people knowing, So, like, there's still an acknowledgement of it, but there isn't Steve is a bit of a doofus. But ultimately, he does, he cares about people. Well, he cares about some people. And he cared about Robin. And I would also argue that I think it's unrealistic for him to suddenly drop someone he was growing close with over something that he probably would readily admit he doesn't fully understand. Again, if you want to argue me it's unrealistic, I don't care. I really super don't. In a fantasy setting, would you say that trans characters should be able to have magic spells transition them, provided the magic in the setting is capable of that? Or would you say it would be best to simulate something closer to real life, or perhaps approach to keep the effects going like in real life? I think it's up to the writer. Like, do what you want. It's like, that's the beautiful thing about fantasy. It's all an option. Would it be better to do one or the other? I don't know. It depends on the story you intend to tell with these characters and the setting you create overall. So, like, there's a trans character in my novel. And I don't go explicitly into how this works, but she is effectively on my world's equivalent of hormone replacement therapy. And that, for her, that is an ongoing thing. That's how I chose to do it. But that's also because the story that I wrote doesn't, humans don't have command of magic. They can't just do whatever they want. So that wasn't even an option that I considered for her. But other people, in terms of stories and how magic works and how they want to do it, do whatever you want. I think which of those is the better option would be more reflective of what kind of world you want to build. And what kind of magical capacity do you want the characters to have? As an ace pan romantic in terms of sexual orientation, I feel kind of bad that the scope of ace representation is basically up to 5 characters, most of those being serial killers or slackers. Yeah. I've heard people say that it's hard to do an ace character because it's basically showing nothing, but I hate that idea. Yeah, no, I reject that framing completely. Like, speaking as someone who is not ace, but also really hates romantic subplots, I do not consider the lack of romantic interest for a character to be showing nothing. I consider that a goddamn blessing because it eliminates a complete range of subplots that 99 times out of 100 I am bored by or hate. So, more ace characters, please, all over the place, left and right. Inject ace characters so that we can have less romantic subplots. Please. Do you think we'll ever see a reboot of Hercules: The Legendary Journeys? Perhaps one that showcases Hercules' bisexual nature from myth. I used to love that show, still do, despite Kevin Sorbo turning out to be a walking, talking pile of human fecal matter. Yeah, he's not getting into him. I don't think you would need to reboot it. I would say, like, the Hercules legends are public domain. Anyone can do a readaptation of them in TV or movie form, or I think we're due for another crack at it. Because we had that movie with Dwayne Johnson a little while back, didn't do too well. I think it's time to try it again on screen. I don't think it's necessary to tie it to that franchise, but I mean, if you can get the rights, sure, go ahead. Do you think Stargate needs to come back to add another contender to the Star Wars, aka the battle between sci-fi franchises that have star in their name? I didn't watch anything of Stargate other than the movie, so I don't know if it's worth bringing back. But strictly as a third-party candidate, yeah, sure, why not? Have you read the trans superhero novel called Dreadnought? I really liked it. I have not. I have not heard of that. So, nope, can't say that I have. I'm guessing that a review of The Mind Robber is in the offing, considering some of the rumors I've heard regarding Neil Patrick Harris and Doctor Who. By the way, currently having a heat index of 108 Fahrenheit. Help me. Oh my gosh. I'm really sorry about that. Like if Neil Patrick Harris ends up being the master, not the master, but like the master from The Mind Robber, which isn't the same master, it was a different character who was called the master. If you've seen it, you know. Yes, I would take a look back at that. I have seen it, but I would need to watch it again before I could do a review on it. Okay. So someone posted one of those, like those 9x9, like it's weird, messed up face. It was like Jar Jar Binks in a dress and you run it. I don't actually know what the heck that is that everyone's using. It's weird and off-putting and I don't get it. It's almost 120 degrees Fahrenheit here. Oh my gosh, Perry. Good grief. Stay safe. Wondering if we could get some relatively brief thoughts on how queer fans should navigate visibility in fandom spaces in this month of all months, in this year of all years. Meant mostly in Whovian comics fans, but more broadly means so you don't have to just retread the BBC warnings. And since I'm ace for the furries, I prefer my king stories to be cold dishes, not knots. Okay. The thing is, you know, me doing the warnings about the BBC is not about visibility. It's about accountability. It's about not letting either the company or the people who might support them get away with just acting like it didn't happen and was never properly addressed. That's what that's about. I think I appreciate that a lot of fan and geek spaces, often, whether it be Discords or Comic-Con conventions, will often carve out specifically queer-friendly areas or events. I think that's honestly a really positive thing, and it helps. It helps a lot. Have you seen the show Everything's Gonna Be Okay? I have not. So, sorry, I don't have anything more to add to that. As an autistic person myself, I don't think I ever related to an autistic character in a piece of media this much. Oh, I mean, that's great. And the actress is autistic. Well, that's awesome. But no, I haven't seen it. Going purely by aesthetics, favorite pride flag. I'd have to go with asexual flag. Trans flag is a close second, but whatever. I look at it, I just think pastels. Hang on. Let me pull a list up here. All right, so if we're going purely by aesthetics, like honestly, this is partially self-indulgence. I really like the gender fluid colors. But I also like the progress flag. I think that's one of the instances where the added sort of triangle and arrow features work well. I'm a little bit mixed on them in some of the other flags, like in some of the demi flags. But I think they work really well there. So, okay. I've got a couple more. Jeez. I might have to start either planning to have these streams run longer or jump over to the Discord earlier, because folks didn't used to use it all that much, and now it's being used a lot. Slight tangent, by the way. Imagine if Dana Terrence had made Bellos a woman, Empress Bologna, maybe, and gave her a backstory of being a tall, blonde, aristocratic woman, either Scottish Highland clan descent or some bastard daughter of the Visconti of Milan, who manipulated and schemed her way onto the boiling island's aristocracy, then proceeded to take over as empress, formed a witch supremacist ideology that oppressed and subjugated the native magical creatures, and also she's especially determined to destroy Lucifer, acquiring magic rather than being born with it. I mean, that's an option. I mean, at that point, you've basically written fan fiction because it's such a divergence. But it's not an awful pitch. Given that the latter is charting Wuthering Heights or Running Up That Hill. Running Up That Hill, please. Let's see. Regarding antagonist Portia, my idea would be less Portia is a vicious, evil Karen, and more Portia is basically well-meaning-ish person who's unaware of Shylock's full situation and is blinded by her own white Christian privilege. Interesting. All right, I've got a couple more, and people are typing out more of them. I think this is just going to start becoming like an hour plus stream if this keeps up. Was Steve a total jerk in season 1, or was his response to Jonathan somewhat understandable? Like Jonathan was taking pictures of people without consent. I think Steve's anger at Jonathan was pretty understandable. I think physically assaulting Jonathan made Steve the jerk, regardless. At what age should you start telling kids they can't necessarily, to put it mildly, trust the government to do the right thing? I feel like with really little kids, you just can't tell them the police are evil, or some of the stuff their teachers say to them may not be accurate for practical reasons. Like they won't know what to do with that information. When does that change? Well, when that change has a lot to do with who you are. Because, you know, as a white person, I am aware of the fact that it's pretty common for black parents to have, quote unquote, the talk with their kids, particularly their sons, about how they have to be really careful around police. Otherwise, the police will shoot them. So I think at what point you need to start breaking those assumptions really kind of depends on the situation that you live in, because that's going to impact at what age is it more important that they know the reality than, just be kind of cruising along. And I know there are those who would argue that, you should never lie to kids and always tell them the truth. But the thing is, the truth is super nuanced and super confusing. And this is not me saying that, like, oh, kids are easily confused. Kids, as they grow up, they will shock you with how well they're able to absorb nuance. But they can't do that right from the get-go. So I think, again, this is going to vary parent by parent and living situation by living situation. But you have to be careful about not over-instilling a trust in an authority that you will later have to help them come to question. But also, it can be counterproductive to instill such a distrust of authority that they, like, basically are rebellious to the point of not being able to just function day to day in the society that they're in. And knowing how to balance that is going to vary wildly from parent to parent. What I can tell you about my own kid is I don't think I'm going to have to, like, I might eventually have to have a talk, some kind of talk with her about police. But I don't think I'm ever going to have to talk to her about the fact that the government doesn't always have the interests of the people at hand, because, it's even like as a kid and just knowing the generalities, not being super plugged into the specifics. She knew very young that Trump was a jerk. Like, she knew that. We didn't have to tell her that. She knew that on her own. She was quite young, and she was like 4 4 or 5. And she was, no, she would have been 5 when Hillary lost. And she wasn't happy about that because, and if I remember the quote directly, the other guy seemed mean. I think she'd maybe seen like 2 minutes of a debate or something. I don't have to tell her that you can't always trust the government, because she has grown up with 4 years of seeing someone in the White House who she instinctively did not trust. I don't have to teach that to her. She got there on her own. Suggestion, set up a Google form for Discord questions. Open it up an hour or two before. Easier to organize the live versus Discord time. Maybe, but except like with my brain, adding more components in is like, it's counteractive for how my brain works. I'm thinking of basing a superhero on their sexual orientation is a terrible idea, unless that superhero was asexual. For example, Ace Man, Captain Ace, Commander Ace, the Ace of Spades, the list goes on. Even us who are pan-romantic or pansexual, since you got the parody idea of Pan Man who uses pans to fight crime. I'd read a webcomic of that, sure. The main thing I wanted to convey in the female Bellos is the idea of her being a vicious supremacist who has a specific hatred to people, of people who changed what she sees as their essential nature. Ah, okay, I get what you were going for. Yeah, that would certainly work allegorically as a villain. Okay, I'm done with the Discord, and I'm coming back. Let's see. I've got 2 super chats. So let's see. John Vinyls. Fun fact, the RTD version of A Midsummer Night's Dream actually makes Theseus the villain of the story. Interesting. Because that story doesn't really have a villain. It has troublemakers. It doesn't really have a villain, though. Huh. Interesting. And Strum Dynasty. What do you think of Stranger Things' representation? I think for being set in the 80s, they handle it quite well. I like Robin immensely. I wish they would confirm what the hell they're doing with Will. Lots of people read him as gay. I have always read him as ace. But I wish they'd confirm what in the hell they're doing. Because this whole dancing around being like, oh, well, we're going to imply. No, do it. If he is something, tell us what he is. Let it be actual representation. So that is annoying me. Do I prefer dresses or skirts? I don't have a strong preference, one or the other. I like them both. Particle Man versus Triangle Man. They have a fight. Triangle wins. Triangle Man. Who's my favorite character from Stranger Things? That's probably still Steve. Will better be out by the season 4 finale. Again, like, my read on Will is ace. Like a lot of people at the end of season 3 read Will's kind of trying to reach out to, or his frustration with Mike, you know, as Mike was kind of moving away from the things they used to do together. A lot of people read that as Will crushing on Mike. I read that as Mike being pulled away by puberty and his attraction to Elle, and Will not feeling those kinds of feelings at all and not understanding why they can't keep having what they used to have, because he's not being pulled away by the same kinds of things that Mike is. That was my read. I think either one works, but at this point they are really implying that Will is something. And, you know, just confirm it. Just confirm it. Because it's not representation if you don't confirm it. Not at this point. There was a time 10, 15 years ago, where the implied representation was about as good as we got. We are no longer living in that time. If you're actually representing it, then have them be the thing. I suspect Stranger Things is either not going to address his sexuality or give him a very clumsy gay coming out. I don't expect them to make him ace at all. Yeah, I don't either, but that's still my read until proven otherwise. Not that I think there's anything wrong with the idea of him being gay. It's just that was my read, and I'm sticking to it until reality bumps me out of it. Captain Omni, thank you once again. Did you know Judge Dredd is canonically LGBTQA? While not confirmed as anything specific, did romantically embrace another man in a kiss in an issue. That's cool. I did not know that about Dredd. The only reason I'm slightly surprised is that Dredd is so job focused. I'm kind of shocked he has room in his brain for romantic inclinations or sexual ones. But hey, sure, why not? Following up on that, Particle Man or Istanbul, not Constantinople. I mean, I like Istanbul better as a song because I like its energy. Strom Dynasty. I always thought Hopper was a great positive male. He's pretty good. He's pretty solid. I still like Steve a little bit better. I mentioned that in the positive masculinity video I did a couple years ago. That like Steve's journey into positive masculinity, I love it so much. But Hopper's pretty solid. John Vinyls, thank you again. So Will is autistic and is frustrated that Mike isn't into their shared special interest. Yeah, viably. Yeah, potentially. That works. That 100% works. Still salty over Jughead not being ace in Riverdale. Seriously, that was messed up. That was real messed up. I mean, I try not to get too salty about Riverdale because it's too stupid to be worth getting salty over. But yeah, that was... Oh, come on. Come on. Okay. Around 15 minutes over my normal time. I think that's pretty decent. I thought about watching Stranger Things, but finding out about the violence and gore made me go, maybe not. Yeah, like, it's not... It is very horror-tinged. And while it's not prolifically violent, it is frequently violent. And pretty gorily so. Hopper's a good example of trying to do better. Speaking of Jesse's video about James Gunn is amazing. Yes, I've seen most of it. I haven't had the time to watch all of it. But I also know about James Gunn himself popping into her chat, which... Oh, man. Like, she's too good at this. She's making connections just by being really good at what she does. All right. That's it for that. Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderling series has a major character who reads very ace, also gender fluid or non-binary, not sure which, was written mostly in the 90s, surprising for the times. Oh, that's nice. Yes, Carolyn, thank you for the reminder. So, Twitch tomorrow at 10:30 Eastern Time. I will be continuing to play Pyre, which I am enjoying. And also tomorrow, the Take-Two review for Resolution will go up at about noon Eastern Time. And finally, there will be a review of the new episode of Ms. Marvel up sometime in the afternoon. I don't know exactly when because I'll have to watch it, shoot a review, and then edit that. So... I literally know almost no ace characters. Where are they? There aren't a lot. Like asexual, you have to deal with a lot of headcanon. I had a conversation with Kira the Scrivener. She wasn't using that name yet, but I had that conversation with her years ago on the channel. We talked for a while about that. But anyways, Supreme Omega getting in there at the last minute, sneaking in one more super chat. Much appreciated. On Identity Crisis, in spite of its flaws, how come it was popular and sold well to the point Wizard called it most talked about event of 2004? Excuse me. It sold well because it was shocking, because the mystery was intriguing, and because it was really unexpected. I don't think it sold well in spite of its flaws. I think a lot of the people at the time, and some people even now, still don't see the flaws as flaws, or not as very big ones. I think they're huge, and I think Identity Crisis is terrible. I don't think it's a very well-written story, and I think it is morally abhorrent in terms of the damage done to the characters involved. So, but not everyone gets there. Some people thought it was cool and edgy and said interesting things. I thought it just said a more extreme version of things that comics were saying left and right since the late 80s. So, oh, hey, Meg. Look at you sneaking in here at the last minute. John Vinyl's, one more. I try to wrap it up. You folks bring me back in. More on Shakespeare villains. The villain in Romeo and Juliet is the feud itself, and the villain in Twelfth Night is heteronormativity. I support those readings. Yeah, Meg, you are just in time for things to wrap up. And I am glad you stopped in, though. It's good to see you. I watched your conversation with the Ace Woman very recently. Your hair in that video was fantastic. Thank you. But yes, I am going to wrap it up. So thank you all for joining me. Have a good rest of Pride. And please remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. We